Hello you guys, and welcome to Mr. and Mrs. Social Studies. My name is Sarah, and in today's video I want to share my top 8 lessons for teachers that I've learned now that I have concluded 5 years of teaching. These cover a variety of topics from organization to lesson planning to classroom management and more. A lot of these come from mistakes that I made, and hopefully with this video it can prevent you from making some of those same mistakes if you are fairly new to teaching or if you want to make improvements in a certain area. My first strategy is to really get a good organization or filing system down. Having a crate with the hanging file folders has been so transformative in keeping track of different types of paperwork. As a teacher, you consistently receive different types of papers that you can't necessarily get rid of right away that you might have to use for the whole year, and having these forms ready to go in a set spot is so essential. So I have loved this organization system so much. Lesson number 2 was something I definitely learned a lot during my 4th year of teaching as I switched schools, and it's to be very strict up front. You can definitely be less strict in the future after you really set that solid foundation, but I was much too nice with a group of students that wasn't necessarily a challenging group of students, but because I did not put a strong authoritative approach out there from the beginning, people did take advantage of that, and then I had to work extra hard the rest of the year to try to make up for that. Compared to this year, I started out a lot more strict. Some students actually told other teachers that they thought I was really mean, which is definitely not super true. I can be strict when I need to, but having that more intense and strict starting point then allowed me later on to not have to deal with some of the issues that other teachers might have had to deal with. And because of that, then students were behaving a bit better in my class than other locations, which is the opposite of what it was last year. Another piece related to classroom management that I learned this year is that an automatic policy is not always the best option. When we reflect about our class policies, it's very tempting to want to have things be automatic. If you do this, then this will happen. This will be the consequence. That eliminates the gray area, which is really helpful because unfortunately in teaching there's a lot of gray area. But I did find myself struggling with it a few points throughout the year where technically I should give a student a consequence based upon their action, but where I struggled with that and realized that having an automatic policy is not necessarily the best. Of course, having an automatic policy can be a more fair option at times because it's like, well, if I catch you playing games and you're not supposed to, that's a detention. Or if your phone goes off, that's a detention. When you have these strict policies, it can be difficult to deal with situations where you definitely could go either way on an issue, or there is another layer to the situation that you had not anticipated, and then it looks like you're not being consistent. I think automatic policies can be helpful depending on what it is, but it's also something to reflect on if they are to be broken, or if there's certain layers to the automatic portion where some do get a detention or consequence and others do not. It's definitely tricky, but try to find the balance with that and not automatically assume that automatic is better, which was kind of my approach at the start of the year, but then I realized this year that that's not necessarily the best option. Next one, take days off. Sometimes, especially when you're newer to the classroom, you don't realize the importance of taking days off, and you might fall into the trap of thinking that it's more work to be gone than it is to be there. Now, perhaps in some situations it is. I did feel that way a little bit at my past school where I taught 4 grade levels, just because there was a little bit more going on and a little bit more to write in the sub-plan. However, if you can streamline the way that you do sub-plans, have some sub-related materials always on hand at your school, I would definitely encourage you to take days. Use your personal days, even if you don't plan on using them, use them for something fun, or just to be able to sleep in. Take a sick day if you're actually sick. Number 5 is probably the most important one. Really, with teaching, the number 1 priority is all about relationships. The relationships you form with students and knowing them to be able to support them. If students have a positive relationship with you, they're much more likely to trust you and want to work with you and cooperate with you. And it also is just one of the most fun parts. I feel like if we focus too much on the classroom management, or we focus too much on the content that we're teaching, we can maybe not actually fully develop the relationships like would be ideal. And so if we're able to take the time to form those relationships, then we're going to be able to connect with them on a much deeper level, and it will all be a much more meaningful process. You know, as unideal as it is to say, there's a lot of things that I learned or was taught in middle school and high school that I genuinely don't remember. What I do actually remember is how I felt in the class or the connections that I made, those things last a lot longer than your information will. Piece of advice number 6 is to prioritize your health and well-being. No one's going to do it for you. No one else is going to speak up for you. It's important that we say no to extra demands that are not going to actually benefit us, and to make sure we do set limits for ourselves. During my first year of teaching, I think my average number of hours of sleep was 4 per night, which is pretty bad. And I wish if I was going back, I would have done a little bit better job of balancing, especially since over time you get a little bit more efficient and more talented at putting resources together, and it gets easier in the future. I do think some of that just happens when you're starting out, but make sure you do value yourself and value taking that time for yourself. Make sure you schedule in activities that will help you feel good as well. Piece of advice number 7 is to close your door on any drama. Sometimes schools can be a little bit dramatic, and there can be issues that come up with administration or other teachers or parents, and in those situations it might be tempting to get sucked into that drama and become a part of it. But if you can ignore that as best you can, remove yourself from those conversations, close your door on that drama essentially, and just focus on your job and your kids in your classroom, then that's going to help you have a much more positive experience. I personally have been aware of drama at both of the schools I work at, as well as the schools that Jake has worked at. But one thing that's important to us is to stay out of it as much as possible, and I just kind of don't engage at all in those dramatic conversations. And it really allows me to have laser focus about what actually matters, which is the kids and helping them. The last key lesson I've learned over the last few years is to not compare yourself to others. Comparison obviously can motivate us in some cases, but if we're consistently thinking, wow, I'm not as good as this teacher, or wow, what this teacher is doing so much better than what I'm doing, that's only going to leave us feeling a lot worse about ourselves. And the bottom line is you're not going to be able to be as an effective of a teacher if you're constantly doubting your own materials. One thing sometimes we don't realize is that certain students respond better to different styles, different materials, and even if a certain teaching style that another teacher has or a certain type of materials they use is really important for a lot of kids, there are going to be students who resonate with you and your message. So really prioritize that. I hope this video was helpful to you guys. These are all 8 different lessons I've learned over my last 5 years of teaching, and I know that I really wish I would have been told these when I first started, so perhaps it will be helpful to you. If you'd like to check out other videos, you can do so right over here. And if you'd like to subscribe to our channel for more teaching related videos, you can do so up here. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.